Hello and welcome back. It's almost September. That means the NHL season is a little over a month away. So today we'll start the pre-draft content with a look at some of the top players from the second half of last season. Now, this exercise is designed to find players whose stock may have fallen due to injury or a slow start or something like that, or guys who can carry their momentum into this season. Now, not all of these players will, but in the past, this has helped me identify players like Tage Thompson, JT Miller, and Jack Hughes before their breakout seasons. So let's hope for more of that good fortune. And now let's kick it off with number 10, and this is a guy you're all familiar with, and that is Alex Ovechkin. Now, right now, he's sitting at ADP 44.3. This is very early on. That will probably change, but as it stands now, this is the lowest ADP he's probably ever been since his rookie year, and even then, he might have actually gone a little bit higher than this. This was also a very career-low season for him. 79 games total, 31 goals, 34 assists, 65 points, the lowest point total of his career except for the lockout year and an injury season in 2021, and it's also the lowest goal total of his career except for those two seasons as well. So both a low in goals and points is not great if you owned him last year, but that does give you some upside this year. Now, 853 career goals, that's the magic number. He needs 41 to break Gretzky, so that means he's motivated this season. And if you look at the bottom, the second half performance, 38 points in 40 games, 23 of those were goals, almost a point per game, and then a 47 goal pace. If he can get anywhere near where he was at the second half of last season, he will break Gretzky's record next season, and you got to know that that's on his mind right now. So this could be an interesting play. You can see this trend going down pretty consistently, 87, 84, 83, 82, down to an 81. So he's been kind of trending downward very gently over the past couple of years, but what you do get out of him is he's still got 2 hits per game, 3.5 shots per game or thereabout. He's still a power play goal scorer, so you're going to get a lot of those as well. Elite level in all of those metrics, power play shots, goals. And then I would imagine that the point totals will come up with a little bit better surrounding cast around him. Last year, the Caps could not score. So with some of the additions they've brought over, especially on the back end and Dubois, I'm not a huge fan of Dubois, but they will have guys like Chychrun getting him the puck, and that will help at his 5-on-5 scoring, and hopefully it'll help him get to that Gretzky record. That would be incredible to watch. Now at number 9, we've got Lucas Raymond. This guy almost made my top 10 breakout fantasy players. The reason he didn't is because he's kind of been this good from the beginning. So 66 down to a 60, back up to a 69. He didn't really start low and then break out high, but this was definitely a great season for him. 31 goals, 41 assists, 72 points in 82 games played. Now, in his 3 seasons, he's played 82 games, 74 games, and 82 games again. So he's very durable, 96.7 percentile, 96.7% of his games he's played in over the past 3 seasons. This positional rank is based on completeness. So when you see this number, it's how complete he is for a right winger, which is what he plays right now. I believe he's single position eligible. Now, he was shooting 19%. That could regress a little bit in terms of his goal totals because his goal totals in the second half, 20 goals in 41 games is excellent. That's a 40-goal pace. And he is playing top line with Dylan Larkin and Alex DeBrincat potentially. So that could be a good line assignment for him. But the reason why that shooting percentage is troubling is this shot total. So 1.99 shots per game is low for a guy who scores at this level and who is top line and on the power play. You would like to see him shooting closer to 3 shots per game, not 2. And with some of the guys you'll see on this list, they've been steadily increasing their shot totals to increase their goal totals as well. And it's worked out well for them. So if he can do that, that will be a way that he can continue this goal pace that he started in the second half of last season. The last thing is he's only 22 years old and he's entering his prime. He is arguably already in his prime. So he's only got some of the best years of his career potentially in front of him. Hopefully he can stay healthy as he has early on in his career. So there's nothing limiting him from continuing this progression. He would definitely be a keeper league target for me if I were in such a league. At ADP 111, he's probably going to provide really good value for you. So this would be a guy I would look at if you're not afraid of picking those single position right wingers with a little bit less shot volume. But I do prefer those guys with shot volume. And when it comes to shot volume, number 8 on our list, Connor Bedard, is a guy that burst onto the scene last year, 3 shots per game right off the bat. This games played percentage is based off a 3-year calculation, which technically he's only been in 1 year, so that's why it's a little wonky. He's actually played 68 games last year, and that's 82.9% of his team's games. So it's not the end of the world, but he did miss a bunch of time there with that broken jaw. So that is something to keep an eye on. He is young and relatively smaller, so he doesn't have that big frame to help insulate him and protect him. But when he is on the ice, he's elite level. So 0.9 point per game for the season long number. 0.32 goals per game is a little bit low for what you would expect for him. And that way you can see that down here, 7 goals in the last 29 games of the season. That is relatively low, but what that means is he was on a 59 assist pace, which is really nice for a guy who is obviously known for his shot and his goal scoring. But his hockey IQ is not to be slept on. He's very smart and intelligent, and now he's got a little bit better supporting cast around him. Guys like Bertuzzi and Teravainen coming over. Taylor Hall might be back healthy, so there will be a little bit more to work with in terms of getting those assists and guys finding him in scoring locations. So this could be a nice play for you if you're in a points league. I wouldn't look at it too hard in terms of a categories league. He doesn't hit or block, and that injury trouble. One season, it's not the end of the world, but it is something to keep an eye on. He was shooting 10.7%, which you would imagine he would shoot a little bit better than that with the kind of shot that he has. He's known for that. So I would assume that his shot percentage could go up to 15 to 20%. With that shot volume, that could mean a lot more goals. So I could see a lot more goals in his future. Obviously, we all can. So this is nothing new. But at ADP 48, he might provide pretty decent value for you. That's pretty much where he went last year as a rookie, and he should be a little bit better this season with the supporting cast and with another year under his belt. Now, number 7 is a guy who's been around for a long time. He is Sidney Crosby's wingman. That is Brian Rust. He's going at ADP 145, which is crazy given some of these numbers. So 62 games played, 56 points. He did miss 20 games with an injury of some sort. He was a plus 10 if you're in a league with plus minus, so that is encouraging as well. But in the second half, 34 points in 35 games, almost a point per game. And he was at a 42-goal pace in that time span. He's obviously, it was Crosby, Gensel, and Rust. Now, apparently, Daily Faceoff has Ricard Raquel on that line. We'll see what happens with that top line as they have lost Riley Smith. So there's a little bit of juggling going on in the top 6. They bring in Rucker McGroarty. They bring in some other guys to fill in, but we'll see how that shakes out. But he is almost always with Sidney Crosby, which is what you like to see. The other thing you like to see is this shot volume. So 96th percentile there, 3.16 shots per game. And then 97th percentile in goals. I had him on one of my teams last year, and he was a little bit of a sleeper, under the radar, constantly giving you shot volume and goal totals. And that is something that you like to see. He does block a few shots, not the craziest shot blocker, but 61st percentile is not bad for a winger like he is. And then obviously he's never hit 30 goals before, but he's always between 20 and 28 goals. And his second half pace was 42. So he should be at least around a 30-goal scorer next year with above 3 shots per game shot volume, and he does get power play time. The power play numbers are a little bit underwhelming in terms of guys that you could potentially find, but at this ADP, this is probably the best you're going to get. So he's a nice, deeper in the draft type of value play if you're looking for that single position right winger. Now, up next is a guy that I love in fantasy. He's very complete. In fact, he's the 7th most complete player on the Player Hub. You can see his position rank 5, and he's been trajecting up in a pretty significant way ever since 1920. So 62, 70, 78, 82, up to an 86, 87. He's going at ADP 62, which is excellent value for a guy this complete. The reason why is he doesn't have that top-end ceiling in terms of his goal or assist potential. So 30 goals is not bad at all. 34 assists, not bad at all. 64 points in 77 games is a tad bit underwhelming, but you're going to get everything else out of him. So we saw Ovechkin was the only other guy on this list right now with 2 hits per game. And believe it or not, Eriksson Ek is 2.17, so a little bit higher than that. Shot blocking is okay. The power play numbers have come up in recent years as well. 0.27 power play points per game is really nice to see there. And the goal totals, 94th percentile, 30 goals scored. That's what you're going to get. 32 goal pace in the second half of last year, and he was at a point per game. So if he can stay at that point per game level this year, he will be incredible value at ADP 62.9. And one other thing I wanted to point out, part of the reason for this trajectory in the upward direction, the shot volume year over year, 2021, 2.13, 21-22, 2.9, 22-23, 3.17, and then last year, the 3.47. So he's been steadily increasing that number, and lo and behold, it increases his goal totals and he had his first 30-goal season of his career and his highest point total of his career last year. So this is a team that desperately needs their top six. The guys like Kaprizov, guys like Boldy, guys like Joel Eriksson-Ek, they are definitely relied upon on the power play. So he's going to get the ice time, and he's going to be another factor that we're not talking about in this segment is face-off wins. He does face-off, take a lot of face-offs, and he wins a lot of them. So if you're in a points league with face-offs, he's another stat stuffer in terms of his category coverage being very complete. Now up at number 5, we've got Jonathan Marchessault changing teams. This is a little bit of a cautionary, insertion into this list. He is, obviously he's coming off a 42-goal season in 82 games, 69 points, -2 on that Vegas team. He's been with Vegas for a number of years now, and he's, coming to a new team for the first time in at least 5 years. So this could be a new, kind of experience for him. And sometimes when guys are ingrained in a situation, they come over to a new team, it's not an easy transition, especially coming off a career high in goals. So he's usually in the high 20s to low 30s. He hit 42 last year. You can see 98th percentile in goals, 0.51 goals per game. But he was at a 51 goal pace in the second half. So 25 goals in the last 40 games, a point per game in that span as well. That's what got him this contract in Nashville. And the question that I have is, where is he going to fit on that power play? You've got right-handed shot Forsberg, right-handed shot Stamkos, who they're probably going to put where Stamkos normally goes. He could be the bumper guy if they move Forsberg over to the right side, but we'll wait and see what that looks like in preseason and in the first couple games in the regular season. But ADP 91, not bad. I would potentially like to get him a little bit later than that just because of the risk. But once you're at that point of the draft, you can take on a little bit of risk. So to get a guy with 3.24 shots per game and half a goal per game, a 51 goal pace in the second half, that's not bad either. So this is just a caution because a lot of times guys go to a new team and it doesn't work out. Jonathan Huberdeau. And so you got to take that into account when you're drafting them. But this isn't a bad spot to grab Marchessault. Now at number 4, we have Wyatt Johnston. He was featured in our top 10 breakout players from last season, and you can see why. Look at this 53 all the way up to a 71, skyrocketing. 82 games played, 32 goals, 33 assists, 65 points, and a plus 14 if you're in a plus-minus league. So that's nice to see as well. The thing that I noticed when I was doing that other video, and you can find that in the playlist on the channel here, back-to-back 82-game seasons at 19 and 20 years old. That's incredible. So he's been extremely durable. This is a 3-year average, which is why it's 66.7. But again, in 2 years, he's played every single game. So 100% of his games played over the past 2 seasons, which is incredible for a young player. On top of that, you get pretty good goal scoring levels. He was at 43 goal pace last season, 22 in the last 42, point per game in that span as well. And on top of that, he's a center, a top 6 center, and he's getting pretty good matchup assignments where he's taking on some of the best players in the league, and he's a plus 14 on top of that. He doesn't do it all on the power play. Power play numbers are okay, but 0.12 power play points per game. There's room for improvement there, so you could potentially find him on the power play 1 this season, and that would boost his potential offensive production, his power play production, etc. The only thing I would like to see is just a tad bit more shot volume. This is still pretty good, 2.63. I like my guys around or above 3 shots per game because you can't find a lot of defensemen to do that, so you want your forwards to do it. But other than that, doesn't hit, doesn't block, similar to Bedard in that fashion. But other than those 2 metrics, if you're in a points league, I would definitely look at Wyatt Johnston. ADP 56 might be a little bit high for me just because of the fact that he's young. He hasn't necessarily had consistent production over year over year at a point per game pace, but he was at a point per game in the second half, so that is why he's number 4 on this list. Now, number 3 is a veteran guy. He's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. People kind of forgot about him because Calgary has kind of regressed. Everybody was talking about all the big name free agents that they lost, but he quietly went and had a pretty good year. 82 games played, 75 points, 29 goals. And then the thing that I love about him, he's consistently high 20 goals or low 30 goal totals, but he's always in this 3 shot per game range. He's been above 3 shots per game in each of the last 4 seasons. Somewhere between 3.1 and 3.5 shots per game is what you're going to get out of Kadri. He does get a lot of power play time and a lot of power play production, which is nice to see, obviously. I just don't know where they're going to use him. Right now, Daily Faceoff has him on the 3rd line. I don't see that being sustainable. He's too good of a player to bury on the 3rd line at 15 to 17 minutes a game. I would imagine they're going to use him in the top 6. I would like to see him find some chemistry with Huberdeau and get his game going. But other than that, he is very durable. He has been slowly trending downward, but that's because he went from Colorado, where he had a career season, 87 points in 21-22. That is his ceiling. So he does still have a little bit of value left in him in terms of where he is compared to his ceiling, about 12 points away from his ceiling. And on top of all of that, Calgary doesn't have that bad of an offense. You look at their offense on paper, there's a lot of younger players coming up. Connor Zary, Pospisil's been playing with Kadri a little bit. So at ADP 142, this is incredible value if you can get Kadri. I like those shot volume guys. He's a 3.38 shot per game guy, which is something that I like to see. He does score. He gets some points. He takes faceoffs if you're in a faceoff league. He just doesn't hit or block. That seems to be a theme with a number of these players. But other than that, he is very complete on the offensive metrics and obviously had a really nice second half. Not much of a goal-scoring second half, basically on pace with what he did all season long, but did hit 1 point per game, or just a little bit over a point per game. But nonetheless, ADP 142 is great value for Kadri. Up to number 2, we've got Clayton Keller, 78 games, 76 points. The only negative is a -20, which is obvious when you're looking at a team that's not necessarily at the top of the standings, but they're coming over to Utah now. They've got a little bit of a new look defense. Their goaltending was actually pretty strong last year, so this could improve in terms of his plus minus. But you're looking at a guy who's been really consistent over the past 3 years, 70, 70, 71. So you're getting this level of production across the board pretty much every season from Keller. He's been really good for a number of years. If you look at last year, almost 3 shots per game, 2.92. Power play numbers, really good, 0.38 power play points per game. That's basically a power play point every 3 games or so. 0.55 assists per game. You're looking at a 38 goal pace in the second half, 0.42 goals per game on the season, and just a bit below a point per game on the season, but up above a point per game in the second half. So 41 points in 38 games, 1.08 points per game. Really nice to see. Now, his shooting percentage is 14.5 last year. It's mostly between 11 and 15% though. So it's not an outlier where he was shooting at 25, 30% and you're going to expect regression. He was pretty much in that range. So you could potentially expect more of the same from Clayton Keller. 33 goals this year. His career high was 37 goals and 86 points in 22-23. So he still has a little bit of upside there. And with Sergachev feeding him some pucks on the breakout and some other guys there, John Marino on the blue line, potentially you can pencil him in for around a point per game. As I don't know if he's dual eligible this year, but he is usually in a dual eligible position. So this is a guy with positional flexibility. At ADP 74, you could do a lot worse than Clayton Keller. And let's not sleep on some of his teammates. Lawson Krause had a good year last year. Dylan Guenther on a per game level was scoring really well. So if he can play with some of those guys that can score goals, that will definitely improve his assist metrics or potentially even his goal totals if they can feed him the puck. But this is a guy who's been doing it for a number of seasons now, 3 in a row with this pretty much in the same channel here. The reason why he's low is because obviously he's even less hits per game and blocks per game. So not a lot in terms of a category coverage type of player, but you're getting decent shot volume and decent offensive metrics across the board. So for points leagues, I would definitely look at Keller in this range. And that brings us to number 1, the guy on the thumbnail, Kirill Kaprizov. This is maybe the lowest you'll see him in terms of his ADP. I'm sure that's going to rise as we get closer to draft time, but 15, if you can get this guy at 15, that will be money in the bank. You can see here he started really well in his career, coming over from the KHL at around 23 years old, and he just continued to improve up to a 79, then up to an 80, 84, depending on how you calculate this metric. He was 1.28 points per game last season on the season, but in the second half, 1.51 points per game. That if you look at his second half pace for points and goals, that's 65 goals and 123 points. The 4th highest point per game pace in terms of if he could have kept that second half pace up for the whole season, he would have ranked 4th in the NHL. So that's the ceiling that you can get out of him. And it's crazy to think that he could go from 1.28 to 1.51 points per game mid-season. But even with that, he's had a career high that's even higher than last season. So in 21-22, 47 goals, 108 points. So if he can hit that ceiling that he hit in the second half this year, you're looking at a 123-point player. If he can hit the ceiling that he's already hit, you're looking at a 110-ish point player. Either way, both of those are very valuable at probably around the mid-second round, depending on where you're picking. This could be, a 10-team league, your mid-second round, 12-team league, early second round, but still, this guy's a first-rounder all day long in fantasy, and to get him at that point, that would be extremely high value for you. On top of all of this, the shot volume is great. 3.69 shots per game is, I believe, the best of this entire bunch. The goal totals, obviously, we know that. The assist totals are still really good, but the power play number, 100th percentile. He was on fire, 5th in the NHL, 41 power play points last year. And he kind of, obviously you can see here the breakout in the second half. The first half wasn't necessarily going for him. So the fact that he can put up those numbers with a little bit of a slower start and then kicking it on at the end of the year, that's crazy. If he can continue that into this season, they do have a new coach. They could potentially, maybe there was something going on there behind the scenes that we don't know about. But whatever it was, it got fixed by the around mid-January point of last season. So he's back to form. He's arguably getting even better. And you look at some of the guys in his caliber, guys like Kucherov, guys like Panarin. They've had seasons where they've been up. They've had seasons when they've been down. But at their best, they're 120-plus point players. And obviously, we'll see on the next slide how good some of these players were. This was the full list of the players. This was January 12th and onward. You can see Kucherov, 75 points in that time span, 1.92 points per game. That's McDavid level stuff. So I'm not saying that Kaprizov can get there, but he did get to 1.5, which is 4th on this list. So really impressive stuff from Kaprizov. And then here's the rest of the list, the usual suspects, the guys that you would expect. McDavid 1.9, McKinnon 1.8 is crazy. Panarin at 1.47 is really good. And you probably found Panarin. I found him in the 5th round last year, which was crazy. Draisaitl, Austin Matthews, Mikko Rantanen, Marner, Josi, Pasternak, all above this range, 1.3, 1.3 thereabouts. Then you look at Braden Point. He had a career year, 50-plus goals. Matthew Tkachuk, in what I would consider not necessarily his best season, but obviously in the second half, he kicked it on. And then obviously in the playoffs, he was a main factor, maybe not offensively, but obviously a complete player that won the Stanley Cup and is now celebrating. This is what you would expect out of Sidney Crosby. Philip Forsberg had a career year. Jake Gensel goes to a new team. We'll see how that works out. But all of these guys were excellent second-half players. You would expect these guys to be second-half players. Of this list, the guys that I would worry about are the guys like this. Braden Point with a 23% shooting percentage. That will regress. He's not going to be a 50-goal guy, but he could be a 40-goal guy. He's been that before. And 17% for JT Miller, a little bit high, but he's extremely complete. Top 5 in terms of completeness. Might be number 1 in terms of completeness. If I haven't checked that in a little bit, but he is easily one of the best center right wingers in the entire game, dual position eligible. The goal scoring might trend downward a little bit just because of the shooting percentage. Kaprizov was high, but he is usually between 15 and 19%. So some of these guys are goal scorers, and that's their percentage. But obviously, Braden Point, that's a little bit high for my taste. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Who do you think off of this list you'll be able to get at value? Because that's the entire point of this game, is to try to find these guys a little bit lower in their drafts. That's why Kaprizov was at number 1 here. He should be really good value for you. But let me know in the comments section below. Glad to be back with you all, and stay tuned for more fantasy content coming in the next few days.